We started with all of our materials laid out to do the job. 2 TJ tubs, just around 25 feet of steel to build the trailer frame, and our axle.
Once we disassembled all of our lights, we were ready for some fabrication. The first thing we did was grind down the top rail of the tub so we could see the spot welds that connect the rail and tub together.
We could drill out these spot welds, and that will allow us to cut the tub and then put it back together so it will look like one piece when we're done.
Now we cut the panels. We used both a plasma cutter and a sawzall while making our cuts and made sure to take our time so that everything was nice and straight. We cut off the corners on the blue tub so we could lay that tub into the gray one for added stability. Now you can see our 2 tubs are cut apart, but it didn't just magically happen. There's a lot of time and effort went into making sure that we actually cut it straight.
Yeah, this can be a little bit tricky. Now the first thing we wanted to do was actually mark right in the center point of the wheel well right there, and we did that on both halves. Then you know that you're going to be nice and centered, so when you put everything back together, it's going to look right. And if we want to reuse that factory fender flare, we can do that too, because that's what this is all about, reusing parts and saving money to make something cool.
Then we made our measurement to find the center point of our wheel well and put this steel beam across the middle. It's about 24 inches out on either side. This way we've now got the center of our wheel tub. Now what we did is then use a level like this to try and find our vertical point up and down through center. So we went through and used a scribe and marked it as we went down along. After we did that, made up a little template like this.
Then you can connect all the dots and get the line that you need to make a good cut. So once we're ready and once we're confident where we need to make the cut, then we're ready to start tearing it apart. Now, piecing these 2 half tubs together can be a pretty daunting and arduous task. It's pretty tough, and we want to make sure it's very important that we do it right. So you're going to use a lot of clamps during this as we squeeze it all together.
The whole idea is to make sure, first of all, we want to get this top rail nice and smooth and flat all the way across. So we got our straight beam here to keep everything flush. So once we get it together, we want to tighten it down there. We'll put another clamp on the back side.
Got it.
So now we've got the top rail that's going to be nice and even. Next thing we want to do is clamp it side to side so it's flush this way. We've already got a piece of tubing on the back side here to clamp up to. Well, this one on the front,
all right,
clamp it in place.
And we did the other side. It's pretty close, but what we'll do is we'll get this one locked in right where we want it. We can tack this one up a little bit. Then we can go over there and get that side ready for tacking.
You know, it's going to be, once we get this, at least we'll have a starting point where we know where we're flush and even to begin with. We got a nice flat line to begin with. Once it gets really tricky as we start going through the inside of it, because you've got all these radiuses, so you kind of got to hand form it and tack weld it as you go.
So Bruno has the body of our trailer all tack welded up. It looks nice. Now this doesn't just magically come together, you know, like that. It's actually kind of like putting a puzzle together. So when you cut the blue one out right here, we left this big tongue out right here. This is going to reach over and overlap the bottom side of this one. Now this one's cut a little bit shorter, but like we said, they overlap like that. And we wanted to keep all our cross members on the bottom side of this all lined up as well. So there's 3 of them under here and 1 right there, and they are all lined up.
Now, our thinking wasn't having this overlapped, our tongue, so to speak, is the fact that we wanted to be a little stronger. If we cut it flush right through the center and just butted the 2 up together, well, it'd be a weak point all the way through the middle here. You have this big seam, and it would want to sag anytime you put any real weight on it. Even if you got a frame underneath, between those frame rails, it would still sag down. So by doing this, having an overlap, it'd kind of support it a little bit, make it a little more structurally sound. So phase 1, believe it or not, is done. Now we need to do is flip this thing over and start working on the frame.
All right.
Hey, welcome back to TruckU. So what we're doing is building this trailer upside down, believe it or not. So if things look a little off, keep in mind it's inverted. Actually, it's a little easier to do it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, once the frame is going to get attached to the back here, you're going to have a little issue if you don't use a spacer, because take a look at this. Now, this would be the frame, right? This little piece. But we're actually going to have this tongue that's going to go from the front to the back all the way through. That's going to be one solid piece. So we're going to have an issue right there. If we put a piece on top of that and we don't use the appropriate spacers, we got a couple options here. 1, we could notch this out. That's a little bit of work. 2, we could fab up some steel spacers right here. That's a little bit of work. 3, we could use these because we've actually got them. They actually came from the bottoms of the tubs right there. They're little stock Jeep body mounts right there. So all we had to do was bore this hole out a little bit, fit in there just right, and voila, we're going to have enough room for everything to fit.
So now we know we've got the right height. Our frame will clear. We just need to get the measurements. So I've already been checking this out, and we're at 36 inches for our width. Now that's going to be our inside width, and the reason why we're going to do that is because we want to put our frame just to the outside of the existing bed, so to speak. The reason why we'll do that is it'll make it a little wider, make it a little more stable when we go out on the trail. So mark down 36 inches to the inside. You got that? Okay.
Yep.
Now our length.
We'll check this one.
I think it worked out to be 36 inches, right?
I thought so.
For a cross member. But the thing is, these cross members are 2 inches in width, and our new ones are 2.5 inches, so we've got to account for that. So we want these to be centered on the existing cross member. This way, it'll be centered on our new little spacer here. So in doing so, we're going to have to allow for a quarter inch wider on either side. So that should be 36.5 to the outside for the overall width. You got that?
Yep, 36 inside, 36.5 outside.
We're good to go.
Took good notes.
Nice. It's about time. As you can see, Matt went ahead and cut our frame rails. Now what I'm doing is deburring it all so no one cuts himself, and also everything lines up nice and square. We won't have any problems. One thing I want to show you guys, we're going to put a little bit of an adjustment in this when we talk about the tongue. So this is going to be our tongue. It'll slide through one of the frame rails. Not a frame rail with the same size tubing like this. It'll go all the way from the front to the back. What we're going to do is give it an adjustment so it's got a little bit, it's a little more user friendly. So it'll work like this. A couple will go on the end, and this way was our towing setting. We take the pin out, we can slide it farther back, all the way inside, and this way it'll store away and won't take up so much room. I'm going to go ahead and keep deburring this stuff, and then I can start tack welding our frame into place. All right, so that's tack welded into place. We've got our frame all tack welded as well. And then one thing you got to keep in mind is that you make sure that you put the center of your pin on your spring centered on your trailer. This way your wheel and tires will line up with your fender wells. So what we've done is gone ahead and made a little center mark on the frame here. We've got to get our center pin to align with it. And the way we're going to do that is using a square like this and my tape measure. We'll measure back from it off the ground to the center of the hole. And right now we're at 13.25. So take that same center mark, transfer it back, and that's where the line's got to be here for our hole on the front side of our trailer.
You'll actually can use the same measuring steps to mount that back bracket right here too. Now keep in mind, this is a leaf spring setup, and the spring is actually going to expand as you load it. So that's why you don't want to solid mount the spring back there, because then there's no use of even having the spring. It would just be a rigid solid suspension at that point. So you've got this right here, this little shackle style setup, and you want to back this up just a couple degrees to where that's going to flex with the flow of the spring. So as the spring compresses, it'll go back this way. Now let's exaggerate just for a second. And if you did the wrong angle and you actually mounted it at an angle kind of like this, well, that's just like an extension of the spring, and that would totally defeat even having it at that point.
Right, right. Hey, remind me, I got to catch up with Ryan, and we got to go find some wheels and tires for this thing.
Okay.
Got that side there?
Yeah. All right, now we're ready to get in here and kind of see the fruits of the labor a little bit as we start putting these big pieces together. And we'll slide this over. We got the frame of the trailer kind of button up to the body of the trailer, and this is kind of nice.
Yeah, it's starting to come together a little bit.
There we go.
Now, at first glance, you might notice that the frame might look a little bit wide because it extends into the fender wells a little bit, but there's good reason for it. This thing's going to have a little bit of height to it. It'll be a high center of gravity. So in order to keep it stable out on the trails, when a little bit wider, this way our springs are a little wider, be a lot more stable. Now, you'd be surprised how much a few inches can make. Big difference.
Absolutely. Now, we'll get those bolts into place. Then we're ready to set this axle down, too. Now, you take a look at this.
You got that?
Yeah, we got a couple tabs there that we welded on that'll hold everything in. You got it?
There.
Oh. Now, we machined up these little plates right here. This is going to go on the bottom side right there, and our U-bolts will go right through that, and that will locate the axle, keep that into place, and all we have to do is tighten everything down.
Hey, man, you haven't said anything yet about the wheels and tires.
How did I forget that?
Ryan and I were out doing a little hunting. One of his buddies donated these. I don't know that he wanted to donate them, but we convinced him it was for a good cause, man. 37s on beadlocks. It's going to look good. It should be about the right height to match that Jeep.
Yeah, that's a real nice touch, actually. This is really going to come together nicely, no doubt. All right, we've got to tighten all this stuff up and bolt it all together. I'm liking this thing, man.
Man, it looks good.
No doubt.
The ride height is perfect for that Jeep.
Absolutely. Now keep in mind, it's still a little rough around the edges, right? We're not going to completely finish this out because we're making it for our buddy. We're not exactly sure what he's going to do, so we're going to let him finish it out so it's perfectly custom made for what he's going to do, because Bruno and I might look at this and do a couple other things. You never can tell. There's a lot of possibilities.
Yeah, we're thinking party wagon. This guy's a little more practical. You know, he's doing for search and rescue, so we don't really know all the little odds and end things that he needs out there on the trails, out there doing rescues. We're thinking we can put kegerators and all that kind of stuff. Got a whole different mindset going here.
He's actually out saving lives, which is very nice. Now you take a look at some of the cool things about this. First of all, you've got the hitch back here. That's one solid piece. It goes all the way down the bottom, and that's what actually hitches up to the Jeep right there. So that's a good solid piece. So if you're out on the trail, or if he is, and you've got to hook to somebody else and pull him out, or you need to put a trailer on your trailer, you can do that. Another cool thing right here, double gate. There's one up in the front,
right.
one back here too. Now I don't know if he's going to keep the swinging gate on there. You know, we might put a drop-down gate and make it like a table for drinks and food, but you never know what he's going to do.
You know, the whole thing about this, we did this for about $300. So the wheels and tires were donated. We were able to get some of this stuff from a buddy of ours who had some extra pieces laying around. So we saved a lot of money, and yet it's something that's really practical, because to go and get like a little U-Haul trailer or something to give him some extra storage space wouldn't cut it. I mean, some of those little bitty tires would get tore apart in a day out on the trail. This is practical. It's got 3,500-pound springs on it, so we can pile all kinds of stuff on here, and all those water tanks, fuel tanks, anything else he's going to need. We don't have to worry about it folding this thing under.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about water tanks, fuel tanks, air compressors, and all kinds of tools, maybe a cage up there that he can bolt things onto. Now, this little gas hole right on the side, this could come in handy too. Now, I don't know what he's going to, he may just cover this up so you don't even see it's there, or he may run his airlines back into there and have his connections right here. That way they're nice and tucked away and hidden, and if he does run this up against a tree or some rocks or anything like that, he's not going to shear it all off.
Right.
So again, possibilities are endless, and I think he's going to be really happy with the way this came out.